The war had been raging for decades, a shadow that stretched over every city, every farm, every sky on Earth. Captain Eric Talon knew that humanity was teetering on the edge of extinction. The Valorians, the alien species that had invaded, were unlike anything humans had faced before. They were fast, precise, and had powers that seemed impossible: telepathy, extreme speed, and the ability to anticipate human actions almost before they happened. Yet Eric had not given up. Humans never truly gave up. That was their advantage. The last human stronghold lay in the ruins of what used to be New Chicago. Skyscrapers had become jagged skeletons of steel, streets were craters and ash, and the sky carried a permanent gray haze. The resistance had gathered their remaining fighters there, no more than a few thousand men and women, against a Valorian army that numbered in the millions. It was madness to fight, and yet every human knew that surrender meant annihilation. Eric checked his rifle, feeling the weight of it in his hands. He was tired, physically and mentally, but exhaustion did not weaken his resolve. He glanced at the faces of the fighters around him. Some were young, barely 18, their eyes wide but determined. Others were older, scarred by years of battle. They had one thing in common: a refusal to accept that humans were weak. The plan was desperate. They would attack a Valorian command base hidden in the mountains outside the city. Intelligence suggested the aliens were gathering a new weapon, one that could wipe out the remaining resistance in hours. If the weapon was activated, there would be no second chances. The attack had to succeed, or humanity would have no future. The journey to the mountains was quiet, tense. Eric led his squad through a forest that had survived the destruction better than the city. Birds no longer sang, but a breeze whispered through the broken trees. They moved silently, knowing that the Valorians could sense more than just sight. A wrong step, a flicker of emotion, and they could be detected. Hours later, the mountains loomed ahead. From a distance, the command base looked like a strange black crystal rising from the earth, pulsing faintly with light. Eric studied it, noting the energy readings from the human scanners. It was unlike anything humans had built or imagined. The Valorians had been studying humanity for centuries, adapting and evolving faster than humans could react. But humans had one advantage they did not: the ability to think creatively in unpredictable ways. Eric signaled for his squad to stop. They crouched behind jagged rocks, observing the alien patrols. He counted them in his mind: a dozen here, another dozen over there, all moving with precision. It would not be easy. The humans would have to use every trick, every improvised weapon, every ounce of courage. "Remember," he whispered, "we go in, we plant the charges, and we get out. No heroics, no unnecessary risks. Humanity depends on us today." As they approached the base, a strange sense of stillness fell over the mountains. The air seemed to thrum with energy, almost alive. Eric's instincts screamed that something was different this time. Then it happened. A figure emerged from the shadows. She was unlike any Valorian soldier they had seen. Her movements were smooth, almost fluid, and her presence commanded attention. Her skin shimmered faintly under the dim light, and her eyes glowed with an intensity that made Eric's heart skip a beat. "Stop!" she said, her voice soft but carrying a power that made the humans hesitate. Eric froze, unsure what to do. The figure raised a hand, and for a moment, time seemed to slow. He could feel her observing him, understanding him in ways that no human could. "You fight bravely," she said, almost kindly. "But it is pointless. Leave now or you will die." "I won't leave," he said firmly. "Not while there's a chance we can stop your weapon." She simply immobilized them, demonstrating a skill that humans could not match, but also showing restraint. Eric found himself face to face with her. She looked into his eyes, and for the first time he felt something other than fear. There was intelligence there, curiosity, and a strange sense of respect. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice steady despite the adrenaline in his veins. "I am Celera," she replied. "I am not your enemy, not truly. I am here to understand." "Because you are different. Your species, you have something no other species has. Courage, creativity, unpredictability. I want to see if it is true or if it is only myth." For a moment the tension eased. Eric realized that survival did not always depend on brute strength. Sometimes it depended on understanding, on connecting with others, even if they were from another world. "We don't have much time," he said. "If your people activate that weapon, my world is gone. Then we shall see if humanity's courage is as strong as you claim. But remember, not all Valorians think as I do. Some will stop at nothing." Perhaps even an alien could see the value of human life. With a deep breath, he signaled his squad to move forward. They slipped past the Valorian patrols, guided indirectly by Celera's subtle gestures. She did not touch them or fight them. She merely opened a small window, showing them a path where humans could survive. The command base loomed closer, more dangerous than ever. Eric's heart pounded. This was not just a mission. This was the last chance to prove that humans could stand against the impossible, that courage and cleverness were as deadly as any weapon. Explosives were planted at the weak points of the base, a risky task that required the utmost precision. Each member of Eric's squad worked silently, their hands shaking only slightly as they followed his lead. The air hummed with tension, but no one faltered. Humans were nothing if not resilient, and their determination burned brighter than any fear. Finally, the charges were set. Eric looked at the base one last time, knowing that seconds would decide the fate of the world. "Get back!" he shouted. The squad ran, the base exploding behind them in a cascade of fire and light. As the dust settled, Eric felt a strange sense of calm. They had survived. The Valorians had suffered a blow they had not anticipated, and humanity had once again demonstrated its resilience. Celera appeared beside him, unharmed by the destruction. "You did well," she said softly. "Humans are remarkable." Eric knew that the next steps would be even harder, that the path forward would challenge everything humans thought they knew. But for the first time in a long time, he believed that humanity could survive, not just by fighting, but by proving the strength of its spirit. And somewhere deep inside, he felt the faintest pull toward the woman who had shown him that strength in a way no weapon ever could. The war was far from over, but humanity had found a new way to fight, and perhaps a new way to live. The war had ended, at least on the surface. Humanity's cities were scarred, the skies still gray, and the remnants of the resistance struggled to rebuild what remained. Captain Eric Talon walked among the survivors, his mind heavy with exhaustion, relief, and a lingering sense of unease. The Valorians had been defeated, but not entirely. The alien species still existed, and some of them would never stop fighting. Yet among the remnants, there was a strange calm. Celera, the alien who had spared him during the last battle, had not disappeared as Eric expected. Instead, she had requested to meet him at a neutral zone, a human base that had been untouched by the worst of the fighting. The base was a cluster of reinforced structures on a plateau outside New Chicago, surrounded by hills that gave a clear view of the sky. Eric arrived just before dawn. The air was crisp, carrying the faint smell of smoke and burnt metal. Soldiers were waking, preparing for another day, though no one expected a battle. Word had spread that Celera would meet him. Some humans were skeptical, others curious, but all kept their distance. He entered the meeting area, a large hall reinforced with steel and concrete. Celera was already there, standing at the center. She appeared the same as during the battle, tall, graceful, her glowing eyes calm yet piercing. She wore no armor this time, only a simple flowing robe of her own design, and she carried herself with a quiet authority. "Captain Talon," she said, her voice smooth, almost melodic, "thank you for coming. And you have proven yourself worthy of my attention. I want to see what humanity is truly capable of, and I wish to ensure the future of your species. Something tangible, something both our species can understand." He had expected proposals of alliances, technology sharing, even temporary truces, but this was unprecedented. "You're asking me to marry you?" he asked, his voice low. Celera nodded. "It is not a trivial request. My species regards marriage as a deep and sacred bond. To accept is to commit not only to me, but to a bridge between our worlds. This union could end the hostilities and secure a lasting peace." And yet he felt a strange pull toward her words, a realization that perhaps this was humanity's best chance. "Why me?" he asked finally. "Why not another human? Why me?" "You act from hope, determination, and the desire to protect those who cannot defend themselves. You embody the qualities my species respects most, even if we rarely understand them." And now he was being asked to take the most personal, most significant step of his life, one that could affect the fate of entire worlds. He looked at Celera, studying her carefully. She was imposing, yes, and undeniably dangerous, but also strangely human in her gestures and expression. Her gaze was steady, curious, almost vulnerable. "And if I refuse?" he asked. "Then your species will continue to live under constant threat," she said simply. "Peace would be fragile, temporary. The war may return. But if you accept, there is hope for a future where humans and Valorians can coexist, learn from one another, and thrive together." His mind flashed through memories of lost friends, destroyed cities, and humanity's enduring spirit. He thought of their creativity, their courage, their ability to overcome impossible odds. Humans had survived because they were unpredictable, resilient, and sometimes reckless in ways no alien could anticipate. "You're asking more than just a personal commitment," he said slowly. "You're asking me to carry the hopes of humanity on my shoulders." If he accepted, he would not only change his own life but the future of humanity. And yet he felt a strange certainty. Perhaps this was the boldest, most human choice he could make, one that relied not on weapons, not on strategy, but on trust, courage, and the willingness to take a leap into the unknown. "I will accept," he said finally. His voice was calm, firm. "If this is what it takes to secure peace for my people, then I will do it. Physically, mentally, even genetically. Humanity's strength will be tested, and so will mine." Solara introduced Eric to elements of Valorian culture he had never imagined: long lifespans, telepathic communication, and a profound connection to their environment and technology. He taught her about humanity, its humor, its adaptability, and the emotional resilience that the aliens found so unpredictable. At first, it was awkward. Humans were loud, impulsive, and messy. Valorians were precise, controlled, and patient. But slowly, Eric and Solara learned from each other. He taught her how humans could improvise, find solutions without complete information, and take risks that seemed illogical to her species. She taught him how to think in ways that transcended human limits, how to sense intentions, and how to manipulate subtle energies for protection and healing. One evening, as the sun set behind the broken skyline of New Chicago, Eric and Solara walked together along a ridge overlooking the city. "You understand humans better than most Valorians ever could," Eric said. "And yet you still choose to help us." Perhaps it was hope, perhaps it was admiration, or perhaps it was something deeper. He did not question it. He only acknowledged it. The ceremony came, quiet and solemn. Humans and a few sympathetic Valorians watched from a distance, witnessing the bond that would define the future of both species. When Eric and Solara exchanged their vows, not in words alone, but in a subtle sharing of energy, understanding, and commitment, something changed. The air around them seemed to hum, a resonance that no one fully understood. It was as if the universe itself acknowledged the union. The war, which had raged for decades, seemed to fade in significance. Humans had survived not through brute force alone, but by showing courage, wisdom, and the willingness to step into the unknown. In the days that followed, Eric discovered that the bond with Solara was not simple. It connected them in ways that affected his thoughts, his emotions, and even his physical strength. He could sense her presence, even when she was miles away. He could understand her intentions, her fears, her hopes. And she could sense the strength of his humanity, the creativity, and the unpredictability that no alien could calculate. The bond would be tested many times, but humanity had already shown that it could survive worse than fear. It could survive trust. It could survive change. And now, through Eric's choice, humanity had secured not just peace, but the possibility of a future that no one had dared to imagine. The world after the war was quiet, but not empty. Cities were in ruins, fields were charred, and rivers ran with debris from battles that had lasted decades. Yet in the midst of destruction, there was life. Humans were rebuilding, slowly but with determination, refusing to be broken. Captain Eric Talon walked among them, not as a soldier anymore, but as a symbol of hope, carrying the responsibility of a bond that could reshape two species. Solara was beside him, her presence both alien and comforting. She had moved to live among humans, observing their ways, learning their culture, and sharing her own knowledge. Her appearance startled many at first: pale skin that shimmered faintly, eyes glowing softly, and movements almost too graceful to be human. But those who knew her, or had witnessed her acts of restraint during the war, recognized that her intentions were genuine. She did not demand obedience, she asked for understanding. The bond between them had changed Eric in ways he did not fully understand. He could sense her emotions, feel her thoughts faintly in moments of quiet, and share ideas almost as if she were inside his mind. At first, it was disorienting. He had been a soldier, used to making decisions alone, relying on instinct and experience. Now he had to consider another mind in every choice, a mind that was intelligent, patient, and sometimes frighteningly precise. Despite the strangeness, he had grown to trust it. Humans were adaptable, that had always been their greatest strength. And if he could adapt to this bond, he could ensure that humanity would continue to thrive. One morning, Arik and Selara visited a training area where humans and a few cooperative Valorians were learning to work together. The humans were wary at first, unused to the Valorians' advanced abilities. The aliens moved silently, telepathically aware of danger and precise with their tools. But Arik noticed something important. The humans were unpredictable. They improvised, reacted without clear patterns, and often solved problems in ways the aliens could not anticipate. "Watch them," Selara said softly, her voice carrying over the training ground. "Notice how they adapt. They are chaotic, yes, but within chaos is strength. Their unpredictability is not weakness, it is a weapon. Humans don't always follow the rules, and that's why we survive." The humans tried standard methods, failed, and then improvised using scraps of metal, wires, and old programming tools. The weapon deactivated, not because of superior strength, but because of imagination. Selara studied their methods intently and even whispered to Arik that she had learned something new from humans that day. Later, Arik and Selara met with the Human Council to discuss the rebuilding efforts and the delicate peace they had achieved. Some council members were skeptical, still wary of the Valorians. "How can we trust her?" one man asked. "She's alien, she's dangerous. And I have seen what humans can do when we work with her instead of against her. Our unpredictability, our courage, our ability to think beyond the obvious. These are things even the Valorians cannot replicate. We have an advantage." Now survival depended on traits that could not be measured: creativity, empathy, adaptability, and courage. Selara spoke next, her voice calm and authoritative. "I understand your skepticism. I do not expect blind trust. But know this, I am here to ensure that humanity survives. Your species has something rare, something valuable. I wish to help you cultivate it, not destroy it. Together, we can create a future neither of our species has seen." In the following weeks, Arik and Selara worked together closely, blending human ingenuity with Valorian insight. They trained humans to understand subtle patterns in alien behavior, to anticipate attacks, and to use their emotional intelligence to make decisions under pressure. Selara learned from humans as well. She observed their humor, their resilience, and their courage to act even when the odds were impossibly low. One day, while walking through the remains of a destroyed city, Arik noticed a group of children playing among the ruins. They were building a small machine from scrap parts, laughing as it sputtered and sparked. Selara followed him silently, watching with fascination. "Do you see?" Arik asked. "They are learning without being told. They are imagining solutions, creating what they need from what they have. This is why humans survive. It's something we can't teach, can't measure. You either have it or you don't, and most humans have it." They debated strategy, shared insights, and discovered that combining human intuition with Valorian precision created solutions neither could achieve alone. Arik found that he could anticipate some of her thoughts, just as she could sense his intentions. Together, they became a formidable team, not in battle alone, but in rebuilding, teaching, and protecting humanity. One evening, as the sun set over a partially restored city, Arik and Selara sat on the rooftop of a building that had survived the worst of the war. The sky glowed with streaks of orange and red, a reminder that life continued despite everything. "You know," Arik said quietly, "I never thought humans could have allies like you. I mean real allies, not just soldiers following orders. But we survive." Selara was not just an alien partner. She was a teacher, a guide, and a companion. And together they could help humanity reach heights no one had imagined. But even as they enjoyed this rare moment of calm, Arik knew the challenges were far from over. Rogue Valorians, those who refused the peace, still lingered in the shadows. And there were humans who questioned the alliance, suspicious of what they could not understand. The path ahead would require courage, wisdom, and trust, the very qualities that had allowed humans to survive the war. Over the next few days, Arik and Selara worked to solidify the human-Valorian alliance. They traveled between settlements, teaching humans to use their ingenuity in ways that complemented Valorian technology. Selara shared knowledge of energy fields, communication networks, and environmental manipulation, while Arik emphasized the human strengths of improvisation, quick thinking, and moral courage. One night, during a long discussion in the council hall, Arik realized something important. Humans and Valorians were not so different after all. Both species valued survival, both valued knowledge, and both valued loyalty. The difference was that humans relied on unpredictability, hope, and heart, qualities that the Valorians had often dismissed as weaknesses. Eric smiled at Celara. You see it too, don't you? Humans are not the strongest or the fastest, but we survive, and now we can teach others why that matters. It was a bridge, a promise that humans could not only survive but also shape the future. And with Celara at his side, he felt ready for anything. Even as darkness fell outside the council hall, the light within was strong. Humans had endured destruction, war, and fear. Now, with allies, knowledge, and the courage to face the unknown, they could step into a future filled with hope. And Eric Talon, once a soldier, now a symbol of humanity's potential, knew that the story of survival had only just begun. The real test was not war. It was the challenge of growth, of learning to trust, and of showing the universe that humans were capable of greatness beyond what any enemy had imagined. And with Celara's guidance, humanity was ready to rise. The days after the Union were filled with both hope and tension. Humanity had survived the war, but peace was fragile. Many humans were still wary of the Valorians, even Celara. Some whispered behind closed doors, calling the Union unnatural or dangerous. Meanwhile, not all Valorians accepted Celara's choice either. There were factions that saw the marriage as weakness, a betrayal of their own species. Captain Eric Talon understood this, and yet he had no regrets. He had accepted a bond that could reshape the fate of two worlds, and now it was his duty to guide humanity forward. Eric and Celara traveled to a major human settlement in the Midwest, a city that had been spared the worst of the destruction. The council there was cautious but curious. Humans had begun to rebuild, but resources were scarce and old rivalries lingered. Eric knew that introducing Valorians into the mix would be difficult yet necessary. Celara addressed the council first. "I understand your doubts," she said, her voice steady. "You may not trust me, you may not understand my intentions. But know this, I am here to ensure the survival and prosperity of humanity. Not all Valorians agree with me. Some still wish to dominate, but together we can prevent conflict and create a future where both our species thrive. Our people fought for decades, losing everything, and now we are supposed to welcome the very species that nearly destroyed us. Humans are not the strongest or the fastest, but we adapt, improvise, and survive. Those qualities have saved us more than any weapon ever could. And now, through this union, we can combine your strengths with my species' abilities. Together, we can prevent future wars and teach our people to live in peace." Over the next weeks, Eric and Celara worked tirelessly to bridge the gap between humans and Valorians. They organized training sessions where humans learned to work with alien technology, while Valorians observed human improvisation and problem-solving. Humans were messy, impulsive, and emotional, but their creativity impressed even the most skeptical Valorians. One afternoon, a group of humans and Valorians attempted to repair a communication tower damaged during the war. The Valorians worked with precision, following exact protocols. The humans experimented, combining spare parts with unexpected solutions. The tower flickered to life, not as the Valorians intended, but functioning even better than before. Celara watched, eyes wide with admiration. "You see," Eric said quietly, "humans don't follow the rules, but we find solutions no one predicts. That's why we survive." Tensions flared, but Eric and Celara mediated, using their bond as a symbol of cooperation. They reminded both sides that survival depended on collaboration, not pride. One evening, Eric and Celara walked through the ruins of an old marketplace. Children played among the rubble, laughing and building small machines from scrap parts. The sight filled Eric with hope. Despite everything humanity endured, Celara followed silently, observing the children with fascination. "They are remarkable," she said softly. "Even in destruction they create, even in fear they hope. Your species is stronger than I realized. Humans survive because we refuse to give up, even when the odds are against us." Supplies were sabotaged and misinformation spread. Some humans panicked, calling for retaliation. Eric knew that a single wrong move could reignite the war. He and Celara decided to act preemptively. Using their bond, they coordinated teams of humans and Valorians to protect settlements, repair infrastructure, and demonstrate the benefits of cooperation. Humans were unpredictable and bold. Valorians were precise and efficient. Together, they formed a defense system no rogue faction could easily overcome. During one such mission, a group of rogue Valorians attacked a remote village. Eric led a small team of humans, while Celara guided reinforcements using subtle telepathic signals. The humans improvised barricades from rubble, created diversionary traps, and used their knowledge of the terrain to outmaneuver the attackers. Celara coordinated support from above, providing guidance without interfering with human creativity. By the time the rogues realized what was happening, they were trapped, surrounded, and outsmarted. Eric and his team had succeeded without a single casualty. Humans had not fought like machines, they had fought with ingenuity, courage, and heart. Celara smiled, pride in her eyes. "This is why I chose humanity," she said quietly to Eric later. "You survive where others fail. You win not by power alone, but by courage and imagination." Even when everything seems lost, humans find a way. That's who we are. The union of Eric and Celara became a symbol of hope, a reminder that cooperation could achieve what war never could. Yet challenges remained. Some humans still distrusted Celara, whispering that the bond made her too influential. Some Valorians resented the alliance, believing their species should dominate rather than cooperate. Eric knew that maintaining peace required constant effort, patience, and negotiation. But he also knew that humanity's greatest strength was not fearlessness or power. It was the ability to learn, adapt, and act with wisdom even in impossible situations. One evening, Eric and Celara sat atop a hill overlooking a human settlement. Fires burned in the distance as people rebuilt homes, workshops, and farms. Children laughed and ran through the streets, a sign that life was returning. "You've done well," Celara said softly. "Not just you, but humanity. You have proven that survival is not about domination. It is about courage, adaptability, and the willingness to grow. It's not just me. Humans always find a way, and now, with you beside us, we have a chance to show that even the most impossible odds can be overcome. Humans have always known that. Now the universe will too." The war had ended not because of destruction or conquest, but because of a choice to trust, to unite, and to embrace something greater than fear. The bond with Celara was not just personal. It was symbolic of a future where humans and Valorians could learn from each other, grow together, and survive together. Challenges would come, both from within and outside, but humanity had already demonstrated its resilience. They had faced annihilation and lived. They had faced impossible odds and found a way forward. And now, with Celara by their side, they could face anything. Eric stood, feeling the bond with Celara strengthen, a connection that went beyond words. He could sense her determination, her respect, and her hope for humanity. And in return, she could feel his unwavering belief in the potential of his species. The path ahead would not be easy. Rogue factions, lingering distrust, and the remnants of war still posed threats, but Eric was ready. Humanity was ready. Together, they would show the universe that survival, intelligence, and courage were not measured by brute force alone, but by the spirit that refused to give up. The first steps of a new era had begun. A world once broken was beginning to heal, guided by trust, cooperation, and the indomitable will of humans. And at the center of it all, Eric and Celara walked side by side, proof that even in the darkest times, hope, courage, and understanding could shape the future. The years after the Union passed in a blur of effort, learning, and quiet triumphs. Humanity was no longer on the brink of extinction. Cities were rebuilt, farms thrived again, and children played in streets that once knew only rubble. The bond between Captain Eric Talon and Celara had become more than a symbol. It was a foundation for a future both species had never imagined. Eric walked through a city square, watching humans and Valorians interact freely. The alien presence was still remarkable, but no longer intimidating. Children laughed as Valorian teachers explained technology in ways humans could understand. Humans shared music, art, and stories, things Valorians had never valued before. The city was alive, vibrant, and full of hope. Celara appeared beside him, her movements graceful and fluid as always. She smiled softly, watching the interactions. "You have done well," she said. "Your species has taken what was once broken and made it beautiful. You have grown stronger, not by force, but by courage and cooperation." Rogue Valorians who refused the peace still lingered on the fringes of human space, attacking settlements and spreading fear. Some humans doubted the Union, seeing Celara as a threat rather than a partner. Eric had learned to balance diplomacy, strategy, and leadership in ways he had never imagined during the war. Each challenge became an opportunity to demonstrate humanity's ingenuity, courage, and resilience. One day, reports arrived of a rogue Valorian fleet approaching a remote human colony. The fleet was advanced, faster and stronger than anything humans had previously faced. Panic spread among the settlers. Arik, however, remained calm. "Gather the defenders," he ordered. "We do this like we always do, using our heads, our hearts, and our courage." They used the terrain, improvised traps, and deception to confuse the approaching fleet. Small teams moved quickly, coordinating attacks without a strict plan, relying on intuition and creativity. Solara observed, impressed by their strategy. As the fleet approached, it became clear that the human unpredictability worked. The Valorians in the fleet had anticipated standard tactics, but humans did not follow the standard. Traps were triggered, pathways blocked, and the fleet was forced to slow, giving defenders the advantage. Arik led a small strike team directly into the heart of the fleet's operation. They were lightly armed, relying on quick thinking rather than brute force. Humans had always excelled in situations where conventional methods failed. They adapted, improvised, and overcame. By the time the fleet realized what was happening, their advance had been halted completely. Not a single human casualty occurred, but the fleet had lost coordination and morale. Solara approached Arik after the battle. "Your species is remarkable. You win where others would fail. You survive because you think beyond what is predictable, beyond what is logical. That is why the war ended, not with a weapon, but with choices like yours." Humans and cooperative Valorians began to understand that survival was not measured by strength or speed, but by intelligence, courage, and heart. The rogue Valorians gradually realized that resistance was futile. The unity between humans and Solara's faction was too strong, too adaptable, and too unpredictable to be defeated. In the months that followed, humanity began to expand beyond Earth, cautiously exploring nearby systems. Valorian technology made this possible, but human ingenuity made it successful. They discovered planets that had seemed impossible to colonize, using creativity and resilience to build thriving settlements. Humans adapted to environments that would have broken even the most advanced aliens, demonstrating once again that survival was more than just a matter of technology. Solara continued to guide Arik, both as a partner and as a teacher. Their bond had deepened into something profound: telepathic understanding, shared intuition, and mutual respect. It allowed them to coordinate efforts across human colonies and Valorian territories with efficiency no one had imagined. Yet even as their connection grew, Arik never forgot the core lesson. It was humanity's courage and unpredictability that truly shaped outcomes. One evening, as Arik walked through a restored city, he paused to watch a group of humans and Valorians collaborating on a construction project. Children played nearby, some human, some Valorian, learning from one another. The streets were alive with color, sound, and laughter. For the first time in decades, the city felt truly safe. Solara joined him quietly, her presence familiar and comforting. "Look at them," she said softly. "This is what you fought for, what we fought for together: life, growth, and hope. And you have shown the universe that your species is worth saving. The war ended the moment you accepted change, the moment you chose trust over fear. That is your true victory." It was the courage to make bold choices, to trust, to adapt, and to grow even when the odds were against you. That was humanity. That was HFY. As the years passed, humans and Valorians worked side by side. Trade flourished, technology advanced, and knowledge expanded. Humans retained their independence, their spirit, and their ability to improvise. Valorians learned humility, creativity, and the value of unpredictability. Together, the species had created something new: a society that combined heart and intellect, courage and precision, human adaptability, and Valorian insight. Arik and Solara's union became legendary, not as a fairy tale, but as proof that one choice, one act of courage and trust, could shape the destiny of millions. Their bond symbolized the potential of cooperation, showing that survival and growth were possible even after the darkest times. One day, as Arik stood on a hill overlooking a flourishing settlement, he reflected on how far humanity had come. Cities glowed with lights powered by Valorian energy systems adapted by human engineers. Farms stretched across plains once charred by war. Children ran freely, laughing, learning, and imagining futures far beyond what he had known as a soldier. Solara stood beside him, her hand brushing against his. "You have taught me as much as I have taught you," she said. "Humans survive not just because of strength, but because of heart, mind, and courage. That is a lesson I will carry for all my life. We didn't just survive, We thrived. Humans have always been more than they seem, more than anyone expects, and now the universe will see it too. They had faced annihilation and triumphed not because of weapons or power, but because of heart, ingenuity, and courage. Solara's eyes glowed softly as she looked at Eric. "The story is not over," she said. "It is only beginning. Together we will guide both our species into a future that no one could have predicted. And whatever comes, humanity will face it with courage, creativity, and spirit. That is what makes us who we are." The bond between Eric and Solara was not just a personal choice. It was a beacon, showing that even in the darkest times, courage, trust, and adaptability could shape the fate of worlds. For the first time in centuries, Eric felt truly at peace. The war was over, the future was bright, and humanity had proven itself in ways no weapon, no strategy, and no enemy could ever deny. The universe had seen what humans were capable of, and it had taken notice. And Captain Eric Talon, once a soldier in the last desperate battle of humanity, now stood as a symbol of everything humans had always been: brave, unpredictable, resilient, and remarkable. And so, humanity stepped forward into a new era, stronger, wiser, and ready for whatever the cosmos could throw at them. With Solara by their side, they would continue to grow, explore, and thrive. The war had truly ended, the moment a human chose trust, courage, and hope over fear.